Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I went ahead and got this thing started. And today's topic, I know Aisha, I sent it to you. I don't know if anybody else read the uh, meeting invite, but it's just talking about IT today and what is it? Like, what is it to in today's industry? Because there are so many different conceptions about IT. Like, IT is just dealing with computers. IT is just, anything that has to do with the internet. Some people think IT is just websites. There's so many different aspects about the idea of IT. And my thought process is how does that affect uh, everyone here today and their call? Like, how do you view IT, and what kind of message would you give to the average person of what IT is to you? Because we all know, especially those who are actually in the industry, it is a broad spectrum, and there's just way too many avenues to kind of go about it. However, the misconception is that when people state that they're an expert in the field of IT, doesn't necessarily mean that particular aspect. So with that being said, why don't everybody introduce themselves and let the audience know like who we are dealing with. So just do your name, your occupation, or what company you work with, and go on from there. Now, don't let me call out nobody now. I don't better once.
All right, I'll go first. Pam Hamingson, Fortrex Technologies, and we are a risk management service provider. So if you're looking to better manage your risks, IT, let's talk. But I'm looking forward to this. Thank you, Trey. Appreciate you hosting this event.
Thank you, thank you.
Certainly. Hi, my name is Aisha Hollins. I am the founder and CEO of Forensic Technology. We offer digital forensic and cybersecurity solutions for organizations. Thank you so much, Trey, for having me on today. I absolutely love that question. I think you and I kind of got into that the first time we talked. Um, so I'm ready for the answer after introductions.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see we have Alan on the call. Alan, are you available to speak on this? I guess not. All right. Well, going ahead, moving forward with the idea. So, my name is Trey Robinson. I am the CEO of T.A.S. Technical Solutions, and for my particular business, we're basically a managed service provider where we provide IT services of various sorts to local and national companies, whoever needs their IT done. Now, with that being said, with today's topic again, I want to talk about IT today and what is IT to you. And what brought up this particular question is that I've been dealing with clients when they uh, come to me for IT services. The first thing they always ask me is, "Okay, you're in IT, so that deals with, you know, websites, or that also means that you're dealing with just computers, right? Or you deal with the internet, like Comcast." And when you get questions like that, it's like in order for people to truly understand that, we ourselves have to see how is it actually defined. I know for me, IT or information technology is anything that's dealing with your data. So as a business, when your data is digitized, and that information needs to be protected, secured, and flow to the various locations where it needs to be, that to me is what IT is. However, how do you go into the dynamics of that? Because once you start to get to the nitty gritty, you actually have to break up IT into sections. There's software, hardware, network, and security. Those are the four sections that I kind of break that up in. For where software, to me, would be all the objects, all the software that you would be using or programs that you use that help run your business, such as, uh, we'll say, Salesforce or QuickBooks, or things that require programming development or some kind of configuration. That is software. Hardware, of course, we'll be dealing with your desktops, laptops, servers, tablets, and surprisingly enough, even phones, because phones have gotten quite sophisticated these days where you can no longer really just label them as phones. They're literally miniature computers. And I'm not just talking cell phones, I'm talking about even desk phones. There's so many things you can actually do. You can text from a desk phone. You can actually view images. You can even video call from your desk phone if you don't have a laptop. That is how far we've actually come in technology today. So, with that being said, coming from Pam, who's actually in risk management, which deals with a lot of technologies, but not, but I wouldn't necessarily say that is the actual industry that she's in. What is IT for businesses like yours, in your opinion?
Sure. So, a lot of times what I find, so we deal with a lot of clients who are in highly regulated industries, so banks, insurance companies, um, healthcare, and IT is basically everything that you're not doing yourself. So it's, as you've said, it's software, it's hardware, it's, any systems that have to talk to each other and share databases. I mean, it's all IT. It's all IT. And it's interesting you bring up the bit about phones. I actually sort of grew up in the telecom industry, and it's crazy to see, what it was doing, say, 30 years ago, and what I see the industry doing now as far as telecom. And it's, yeah, you're right. These little devices are just handheld computers, just like on the Jetsons, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's everything. And that's how I advise my clients as well.
What about you, Aisha? I actually, given what you have mentioned earlier, seems like you're actually in that particular industry. Uh, so for you, what is it like for when you're dealing with your clients? You're muted.
I'm so sorry. I had just got started too.
It's all right.
Sorry
It's
for
all right.
being muted. Thank you, Trey. It's a very interesting question. So for me, information technology, right? It's the use of computers, or as Pam said, telecommunications, for storing, retrieving, and sending any information from one spot to another spot, right? So oftentimes it's we have tech at rest, tech in transit, right? Tech in use, right? Or be that data, right? So for us, when we're talking about cybersecurity, because that's our wheelhouse, right? I love to tell people that information technology, information security, they're within the same family, but they're not the same family, right? We love to take information technology, clump it all together, and call it just IT, and just have a party with it. The issue that I find there is I tell my clients, or whenever I'm working with any type of institution, information technology is a lot like medicine, right? You have your general practitioners, and then you have those folks who actually specialize in a particular area when it comes down to how we manage or how we work with regards to IT. Right. So you're right. For those that look at IT as just my computer and whether or not can I print, can I get on the internet, Can I do the basic things that I need to do with my technology? Then I'm all happy, right? But when we start having those conversations around what I need a website, do I need social media? Do I need data management? And do I need my information to be secured and segmented and treated a different kind of way, right? So when we start having those kinds of conversations, to me, I treat that like I went to the doctor and he asked me, "Are you having a heart problem? Are you having a problem with your feet? Are you having a problem with your brain? You have neurology, you have podiatry, you have cardiology." And that's how I view technology. We have to start actually putting them in the right baskets, in the right buckets, and then therefore we can start having the right conversations. Hey, Alan.
I absolutely agree. And again, like I said, it actually helps also too when it comes for somebody that's also in the particular industry that actually has a different viewpoint towards these things to actually kind of show the world that, okay, you want to know what IT is, you wonder what it means to you. Like these are the different avenues to actually how to approach it. And with that being said, Alan, I know you just got in, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and tell us what is IT in your world? What is it to you?
Well, first, let me take myself off mute and thank you for putting me on the spot. Sorry. Um, so what I do, I'm Elliot of Elliott Management LLC. So we specialize in cybersecurity. We mitigate risk and vulnerabilities in cloud environments, the information systems, networks, and processes centered and related to cybersecurity. What does IT mean to me? Oh, man, I would say IT is, it's the cool bells and whistles, like the latest tech that that's out there, right? So we all are attracted by that shiny new thing or vehicle. So I consider that to be IT. Um, and just related to a vehicle, right? Everybody wants a Ferrari. Everybody wants the in some cases like Aisha, the CLS 550, right? Uh, but at what expense or at what cost? So if I can give you a really nice vehicle and it runs, but the doors don't lock and there's no key for the ignition, uh, you know, some cases there's no brakes, like how valuable is that vehicle, you know? So that's what we do, that's what we explain to customers, and that's what we try to help them navigate.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. One actually mention I want to actually bring up is that you had mentioned vehicles. Now, now information technology has become so sophisticated that people are trying to create self-driving cars, self-automation. Automation is kind of like the big new technology thing that is out there. And once again, IT or information technology for the fact that that information is going to become even more crucial. So for those of us who are actually in the industry, because apparently all of us are definitely into security and risk management and things of that nature, it has getting to a point where no business can live without some form of technology, none whatsoever. And what a lot of businesses and individuals don't realize is that in the heart of your business, if that data it cannot be secured or it goes down or gets wiped out, where does your business lie? So I'm going to put Tesla on the spot, this particular brand, because if you've seen their vehicles, it is highly computerized. And when I say computerized, I'm talking about say you left your keys at home, you can actually run your car from your phone. Who does that? Now, so of course, people find it all fancy and great and things of that nature. However, looking at it from an objective perspective, how do you know that someone can't, one, hack into your phone, get that information, create those keys, and then all of a sudden your vehicle is their vehicle. We have gotten to a point where we could get tracked by our vehicles because of chips and things of that nature. Once again, what if somebody wants to be like, you know what, I like that vehicle and I want to take it? They can track you. they can do this, they can do that. Technology is so heavily dependent upon the needs of the users that we also forget that there are people out there that will what was used for good but want to use it for evil. So, and it's like I'm not, and I hate doing the, I guess you could say the jump scares of information technology. However, these are the kind of things that we got to put into possibilities to ensure that people understand why it's important that certain regulations have been put in place. Whether you're, because for those of us who actually doing the cybersecurity, the representation of their security is you. So what happens to them is also a direct reflection on you and that particular business, especially if you're doing risk management and things of that nature. So I'm actually going to put Pam on the spot on this one. When it comes to risk and the dependency of technology, what are some of the things that you look for to tell your clients or customers, like, this is a risk that I see, even though I'm not telling you how to run your business, in
Right.
order to prevent what ifs, these are some answers that we have.
So one of the things I have difficulty, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, or the whole concept of risk is I mean, people know what a risk is, but in their business environment, they may not necessarily understand what risk is. So so if we're going to use the car analogy, I talk about risk. The risk that I'm engaged in is driving a car. Now, there's a risk that that car may crash into a street lamp. So what are the mitigating controls, control being a key word here, that help keep me safe? If it's an older car, I probably just have a lap belt. If I'm driving your Tesla, because got it from my phone, if I'm driving a Tesla, I got a whole lot of controls protecting me. I've got at least a 3-point harness keeping me in my seat. I've got airbags front and side. I've got all sorts of, blind spot detection and lane detection and all of that. Those are the controls that are in place to keep me safe in my seat behind the steering wheel. So a lot of times I help clients get to that point because it's not just about the risk. In my environment, it's not just about the IT risk. Okay. I've handed off payroll to someone else to manage payroll. But the data in that payroll, there are probably social security numbers because I got to do tax reporting at the end of the year. There are, people's home addresses, their salary, their deductions. Are they garnished? Are their wages being garnished? There's a whole lot of sensitive information, even though I've handed off to another IT provider who happens to specialize in payroll IT. Helping clients understand what their ecosystem is really, and where the different things that every time they use technology, how it impacts, how it could impact their environment even further. So did I answer your question? I get up on a soapbox sometimes, so.
No, I mean, that answer was absolutely fine. Because again, the whole purpose of this is to actually get the different perspectives from various
Yeah,
different industries for them to understand that there is just so much more to IT than what they
yeah,
believe it might be from the hindsight of things. And again, and because I'm about to move up to Alan on this one,
yeah.
because he also
Well,
hit a very good point about the prettiness of things. They like the latest and
Well, yeah.
greatest.
So
So
the other thing, I just want to add one more thing, and this is important in my environment, that that your that the client reviews the use of their technology on some sort of periodic basis, because you never know when someone from the IT staff saw this new functionality that the existing software is doing. And last year you weren't handing off any confidential data, but now this new feature comes on with existing software and someone in IT turned it on, and suddenly everyone's data is exposed. So making sure that people understand that their impacts to their actions.
Wholeheartedly and 100% agree and understand that particular aspect. I actually have a story behind that, but I will actually save that for the end of this particular call. So moving forward, Alan, kind of like I was leading into, you talk about the pretty bells and whistles about
Yeah.
IT and how people are like, oh, new shiny, without really
Yeah.
understanding there's risk with new shinies as well.
No, 100%. And going back to the Tesla example you just gave, I just saw an article uh, last night on I had a news feed, and it talked about how a guy who mistakenly thought that was his Tesla used his phone to get into that car and drove off. So it was the same color, same model, right? He used his phone and was able to get in that vehicle and drive off. So it goes to what we talk about with Tesla, and let me not just single them out, right? When we talk about vehicles or the new shiny things, is that there's one of my favorite quotes. There's known knowns, there's known unknowns, and there's unknown unknowns. Donald Rumsfeld, right? So as you introduce these tools, Internet of Things, servers, smart technology, AI into your environment, right? Everything has an intended and unintended consequence. So, as a good security professional, right, you need to make sure you think through those intended and unintended consequences. So you have to put those, as Pam said, those countermeasures in place for those unintended consequences. We see it every time that there's a new, excuse me, iOS update. There's a 0-day bug that they got to fix, right? And you're like, man, but that's software. That's no one's going to think of everything. No one's going to cover everything, and then most people do the 80-20 rule, right? If it's 80% of the solution, then they'll roll it out and they'll fix the 20 on the back end. So, like I said, just being a good steward. And one last thing before I stop talking. I have a conversation with customers and I explain to them, hey, look, you might want to at some point consider having IT report into cyber as our threats continue to morph and change. Instead of having an IT director and a cybersecurity manager, flip that. So now, as they bring solutions, you're being proactive on your risk mitigation versus being reactive. And so I tell people about that, and the looks I get, it's like I got 4 eyes or something crazy, right? But
And I actually truly, truly understand that. And I think the problem with that is that when you have those in position of power to make the changes that they can do, there is a level of trust that's just not there for two reasons. One, the person that's usually in a position of power, 9 times out of 10, usually do not have the background of understanding the technology that they are in. I'm not saying they don't know about technology, but they don't understand the technology that they're in. On top of that, um, let's just face it, the language that we have to speak is sometimes extremely difficult to put into layman's terms for them to actually get the big picture. And then lastly, the last individual that you get with is that if it seems like it's going to take away their power, they're not going to care because they want that power.
100%. In one of the best ways, because like I said, I'm on a panel with really technical people, right? And uh, two of the people that I call when I got technical issues are on this panel. I'm from more of a uh, management programmatic perspective, right? So when my technical folks tell me these things, we have conversations around it, and I try to identify that layman's terms, right? That third grade level where you or fifth grade level where you can communicate it and they receive it. So it could be a challenge at times, depending on how technical the issue is. But That's just a communication tactic that we utilize on our team.
Beautiful, beautiful. What about you, Aisha?
Well, absolutely love the question, right? Because what we're facing is that our tech is moving at light speeds ahead of our security. We love, as Alan is saying, those bells, those whistles, the next shiny thing, the next big thing, right? I want, right? But we're not slowing down long enough to even look at or care whether or not our security measures match up. So if we go back to like this Tesla comparison, right? Absolutely love it. However, the same way you have to look at your budget. Can I afford a Tesla? Can I afford the Mercedes Benz, sir? If before we have those conversations, you don't walk on the lot thinking you're going to drive that car off without what? The right insurance, without what? The right place to bring it back. Without what? A Tesla. Don't go buy a Tesla if you can't bring it home and plug it up, right? So we've had to have all the right conversations before we go on a lot. Why are we not doing the same thing with our technology? We need to change the way we're having those conversations. If you can't afford the security for what you buy, you can't buy it, right? And that goes for organizations, that goes for what you do at home, right? And when we can change how we are structuring and having those conversations, then we can start changing the landmark and how we handle technology and breaches and the risks that we face in our day-to-day conversations, in our day-to-day how we do business, right? That's the part we're missing. We cannot continue to afford to just blindly treat security like an afterthought or risk like an afterthought, right? Similarly, I would not go jump out of a plane. My insurance company wouldn't allow me to just jump out of a plane. They're not gonna support that particular policy for me, right? So why are we allowing certain things to be supported, right, in our everyday lives without looking at risk to reward to management or manageability of the technology that you have? Just because you can pay for that iPhone, blah blah blah, right? But can you absorb the risk of the things that come along with carrying that kind of tech on your person?
Absolutely. And I'm actually glad that you brought up the affordability part, because now I'm actually about to scale it down, because most of the conversations we talked about is usually dealing with business that have been well established, been there for quite some time, have at least 40 to 50 employees, minimum, and they actually can have that. So let's scale it down back to places such as nonprofits, startups, things of that nature. They have an understanding that they're going to need some form of technology for this business to take off. However, budgets, costs, and things of that nature, all that stuff scares them. And one of the things that I've actually seen, and it was actually so funny, it was a startup construction company. And when the first thing he talked about was, he goes like, "Yeah, I heard you do IT, so I would like for you to help me get some internet, because that's all I'm going to need, so I can work off my phone or my computer, right?" And I was kind of looked at him. I was just like, "Gonna need just a little bit more." And I tell you what, I can come up with a plan to help you get to where you need to be as little as possible based upon the budget that you may have. And of course, we ask that question of, what is your budget? They're like, why would I need a budget? Okay. That tells a whole lot. So the next thing is, I said, okay, so let's get you the bare bones of what you're going to need. And you kind of give them kind of like the bare minimum to at least get them started, because you don't want to scare them too bad. But the first thing they say is, that is crazy expensive. Okay, it may seem expensive, but how much more do you believe you're going to lose should A scenario happen, B scenario happen, or C scenario happen? Trying to alleviate those fears is also part of information technology, because the thing about it is that information is has way more power than your money, your government, and basically anything on that in the world. Information has that much power. So when you talk about information technology, which is digital information, how much power are you trying to give up to ensure that you can do the things that you need to do? Which goes back to once again how Aisha so plainly put: if you cannot afford this new shiny to do your thing, you need to start with there of how can you afford that? Because jumping right in, I've seen business, rise and fall. And there's some that, like, okay, I have a grand old idea. I'm gonna get this particular contract. I'm gonna make buku's amount of money, and then suddenly they lose that contract, and they're in a negative, like nobody's business. And like, again, I have stories behind that, based upon companies that I've subcontracted and as well as worked with, and it lets you know that planning has not been their forte in the forefront. They just saw dollar signs. And that's one of the conversations that we also uh, that we have to think about when it comes to dealing with this information technology area. So yes, it can be expensive. However, it is nowhere near as expensive as the losses you can incur when things are not seen and explained properly.
Hey, you
So
know what, Trey? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Lee. No, no, you got it. You got it. You
No,
got it.
go ahead.
Ladies
I was gonna.
first.
um,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I literally I cringe on this one. I cringe, right? Um simply because so one of my slogans is you won't get what you don't get. We will not spend on things we do not understand what the benefit what the reward, and we're very reward driven, right? But we are no longer living in a day and an age where we can afford to say, I have the right to start a business that I failed to properly budget for, right? So, similarly, if I decided I wanted to hang my shingle at a doctor's office, am I going to, just because I can't afford HIPAA requirements, say I'm not going to do it? They will shut you down, right? So there are certain things that when you start having these conversations around budgeting, small business, large business, we are no longer living in an age where technology and cybersecurity cannot be its own line item on your budget. We have moved beyond that date. We've moved beyond that age that I just want to have my phone, right? And internet, and I'm good to go. What is your culpability? What's your liability for the data that you are managing? You are now responsible to your clients. And when we can get you to get that your responsibility is back, it's similar to my requirement to disclose how much impact did I have, how much data was in my possession when X, Y, and Z happened. I'm responsible for that, right? Similarly to if I opened up a daycare, I cannot say that only the facilities are my responsibility. For every little person that I took in to that daycare, I'm just as responsible for that little life that you gave me between the hours of I'm open to I'm closed, right? That's how we need to start treating our data. When I brought you my data, I have one personality, not personality, we got multiple personalities. Not that I do, but we have one identity, is what I'm trying to say, right? My name matched to my social, matched to my birthday. None of these things can I ever change. They go with me to my grave. So when I trusted you to be a vendor on my behalf, you have to start taking my security, my data should be just as important to you before you hang that shingle. And if you won't do that, then shame on you for hanging your shingle. Take it down.
You're up, Alan.
Man,
Yeah.
Look, I
I
gotta
just
do one
feel
just let
listen,
me go find a microphone, just drop it right quick.
listen. I feel a cybersecurity spirit every time she speaks, man. Um, I
So
wanted to I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about the startups, right? And even a lot of these incubators that these startups go through don't respect or have a healthy understanding of cybersecurity. So they're getting advised on everything else, but what's going to keep their idea, their technology, their capability secure, right? So as you talk to these folks, I'm not going to name any organizations, uh, uh, incubator organizations, but when you talk to these people, they don't don't have the expertise or don't partner with people who have the expertise to communicate the need, right? And far too many times, you see that they'll get so far down the path, they start getting money, they start getting investors, and then it's like, oh, we got to go back and retrofit this thing we built with cybersecurity, and it's going to be more expensive than implementing it up front. So whoever watches this, implement it up front. It's cheaper. I promise you. Uh, when I worked in the federal government and in industry, we would build skiffs and SAPFs, right? If we built it from scratch, it was $100 to $200,000 cheaper depending on the size, and it went up to even millions of dollars depending on the size. Than it would be to then say, "Oh, well, we want to turn this place into a skiff." Now you got your employees that you got to move. You're impacting your day-to-day operations. You got to rewire stuff. You have to move. I mean, it's just the project management piece of it is so massive versus you just saying, okay, well, what do we need? Let's implement at least something that will meet our access control or that will meet our audit and accountability. And then from there, you can grow it. But do something up front, and it's so much cheaper than trying to, retrofit it on the back end.
Man, once again, another hand clap because being another person that's in a very similar industry of yours, I've dealt with particular federal system. I'm not going to mention, the district or the circuit on that, but uh, certain areas they have absolute power and decision making. However, for us who understand the importance of the different avenues of IT for that particular industry, you look at it and you're like, how have y'all been functioning up until this point without getting shut down? So, with that particular message going down, hitting down the Pam because risk management is one of those things where you're dealing with banking, and a good example would be the current big, large bankings that have crashed based upon poor decisions. So, what do they go to do to ensure that that avenue doesn't happen to their their position again, especially for those in a similar industry, so they won't get reached to the same downfall. So, is that something that you guys possess to actually do that? Like, is that something that you talk to them about as part of their risk?
Well, sure. And so sort of one of the benefits, it's a benefit, but it's also a constraint of working in highly regulated industries, is you've got the regulator right there who is saying, nope, you got to do these 5 things if you're going to do business with if you're going to outsource some of your work. So that's great because that gives you the guidelines, and the client, the bank, either they're going to do it or they're not, and they can have the most lucrative portfolio in the world, but if they're not meeting governmental standards and regulations, it's going to get, they're going to be shut down. I just, as we were talking, and I haven't read the whole thing, it says, I got an announcement that says the OCC issues a prohibition order fines against former Wells Fargo executives. The regulators are coming after anybody and everybody, whether you sit on the board or whether you are an entire organization. You've got to follow the rules. You got to play by the rules. That's the end of that. So that's good in regulated industries. The bad thing is, in what I see as I'm starting to do some work in manufacturing now with risk management, is that they don't necessarily have the same rules and the same guidance. So it's about teaching, it's about educating. Usually one of the biggest things you can get them with, and I think we've discussed this on the call already, that you have that your reputation is on the line, and that there are financial implications if something goes awry. So it's about educating, and it's about dealing with adults who wanted, it's not just a bunch of kids who want to start the next Facebook or whatever, but really dealing with people who understand what the risks are, and if you're serious about what you're going to do, you're going to build it properly. I liked Aisha's comparison to a daycare. Those are lives in your hands. Those are people's lives in your hands. And you had better, have all those electrical outlets closed up, and that, all the things that you have to do to run a daycare, because there are serious matters on the line.
We this mouthful that we over here talking about. This seems like one of those 6 hour specials that we could put on for this. So, and I
One of those
find it
after
beautiful.
school specials back in the day.
Exactly, exactly.
But it's such a
Love those.
it's such a huge topic that really needs to be discussed more, right? This is a great segment. And then it depends on, like, what is the reach, right? How many ears will this land on? Because more than we're having the conversation, can I not afford it? It's technically you can't afford not to do it, right? And we're looking at our budgets the wrong way, right? If I save myself $30 today, that ends up costing me 5 million tomorrow. If we'll literally start having that conversation, then we'll stop having the conversation that I can't afford the $30 today, right? Um, and you and I, Trey, we had the conversation, right? Cybersecurity, it's a buzzword. It's a buzzword. We love to throw it around at parties. We love to make it sound like we know what cyber is, or even what risk is. We don't know what risk is. Every time we hear the word risk, we think it's bad, right? We're not even having the conversation that risk is good, right? So when we're talking about cybersecurity, it's this, oh, it happened to someone else. And when we can stop seeing that everything that happened to someone else, and figure out that map, right? You know, the little map when you're traveling and it says, you are here. When we can start writing ourselves
Mhm.
into that cyber breach story, when we can look at it and understand, I too can be a victim. Doesn't matter what I know. It doesn't matter how educated I am. A cyber breach does not mean that I'm uneducated or that I'm stupid or that I this, right? We love to victimize certain things and not properly educate on the issue itself. It's funny, on college campuses, college, that whole don't walk by yourself and date rape thing, when they escalate is after a situation happens, and then all of a sudden, but college campuses have been college campuses the whole time. Why weren't you already walking everybody to their car? Why do we have to have so many instances, and then we have a rally in the forum at the bottom of the hill and all of that stuff? We should, in other words, already be having these conversations. We should already be bringing the right people to the table. And again, when you're talking about, this is my business, your business is your baby, but so are you. And so you protect yourself accordingly.
And that will actually brings up one of the points I actually wanted to bring up, which is actually it's going to be 2 points. The first point I want to bring up with that is when it comes to dealing with those who are in the business, especially if they're the owner. Yes, it is their baby. However, and I get it a lot, and it's like you inform them of possible risk, the ways to mitigate it, how cost effective it would be to do something now versus later. And but you got some that are going to be either really cheap or they're going to go by their friend or trusted protege's suggestion first and then go by what the quote unquote expert is saying. I actually remember one it was a project, it was just a small project. And this is a client that when I looked at their financials, not really like looked at their financials, but look at their last year's public records for that. This company made well over 50 million. They had they needed an implementation that would cost them 27K. Yes, that is the cost of a car. I also understand that. However, big picture wise that I try to bring up is that you are a company that has millions. And if we're going to start going by numbers, since you seem to be the numbers person, we're going to divide this number by this number. This will actually last you at least up to 10 years. So that's $2,000 a year. You can't even get employees for $2,000 a week. You're talking about this amount of information that will be protected by such a minuscule amount versus what you will lose should something happen down the line and it is not implemented. And again, this was this actually happened at the near the end of 2022. February of 2023, they got hit by the very basis of the risk that was told to them. And there was nothing that could be done about it. The funny part of it is that they usually go back to the individual that warned them, first point fingers, just to ensure that their conscience is clear. Because the bottom line of it is when you're implementing things for protection, protection also comes with restrictions. And anybody that feels restricted, they're not going to like it in any form or fashion. And that's the reason why I'm bringing up the point about the business owners is that it's their baby. They don't feel that they need to be restricted at anything. However, you are the individual that needs to be restricted the most because otherwise, if they get to you, there's nothing anybody else can do about it.
Well, and can I just add in, and I've seen this firsthand with some of my clients, try getting cybersecurity insurance after you've had a breach.
That's right.
Those rates through the roof.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
I've been trying to hammer that one home too lately.
Oh,
Ounce of prevention, pound of cure, all of that.
and and there's even more sillier thing behind it all is that some of the preventative measures, when implemented early on, are pennies on the dollar. I'm talking about you can have a redundant backup system. I'm talking about it goes to hardware, software, cloud, all does this up periodically, and you're looking at what, maybe a couple of hundred a month. Who wouldn't want to save a multi-million-dollar business or even several $1,000 business for a couple of $100 a month? And one of the things I also try to put it try to put it in mind is that look at it as a utility that you need. You pay for your phone bill every month. I'm almost certain that your gorgeous phone system is probably hitting you up for about 500 a month. Your internet, I'm almost certain it's going to hit you for about 150 a month. And that is if you're not trying to go the what's the economical route. There we go. That's a good prior word for that. Um, just let's try to have things in place to ensure that the what ifs, because Murphy is a ever present SOB, and he can come along at any given time. I mean, why do when you buy a car, they give you a spare key? Why do you need a spare key? And I'm going by new cars because used car salesmen don't usually give you a spare key. You got to purchase your own. But if you get your next shiny thing, what is your spare key? Why is that spare key available? Because you just never know. So back to you guys. What do y'all think about all this? You know what I mean, what because in 2023, like I say, it's even more sophisticated today. The going back to automation, AI is the next upcoming big thing that a lot of people don't realize, and that scares me probably the most out of anything. Because if you set AI on an automation that says if it's a risk, shut this down, what makes you say that you're not going to get shut out by your own technology? Up to you.
So I think Alan said it very, very well, right? Um, bring us in on the beginning end, right? How you build something matters, right? Um, everything today is built super quick and it dents and dings really quick, right? The cars aren't what they used to be, networks aren't what they used to be. But it's similar to if I were to build a building, right? When I go to the architect, I want him to take his time with my specs. I want to make sure that the foundation is as solid as it can be. And so we're not telling you that you can't have it, right? We're just telling you to be mindful of how you build your structure. If IT and cybersecurity are already at the conversation, it's similar to what we're trying to do now, right? So our boardrooms are made up of CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, COOs, CMO. We done missed. We're just bringing the CISOs to the table and saying, "Hey, it's time for you to join the conversation," right? And the CISO's biggest fight is now you didn't leave room for me in the budget. So everything that I'm telling you, and or so now we have this really shiny ornament sitting at our CEO table too, at the board level, right? And all he is a pass guy, right? As soon as we get hit, we blame it on the CISO, and the CISO is going. But I told you in the beginning, there was no conversation around what does cybersecurity look like? What does awareness look like? Are we training our employees? When was the last time we did a patch? Who's overseeing IT? Alan is right. We got to change how that conversation, the way that we're funneling our information. If the oversight has no oversight, back to someone who doesn't know how to read the oversight, you may as well have stayed the whole conversation, right? The conversation was an unnecessary, it was a waste of words, really. AI is definitely scary. Virtual reality also scary. As I said before, we're building tech faster than we're thinking about the security. And until we change that dialogue, we're going to be where we are. But this forum here, that's what we're working to do. Change the conversation.
You first, Pam.
No, I have I mean everything I feel like I'm in lockstep with you folks because these are the conversations that I'm having with my clients, with my prospects, with people that I network with. You've got to stay on top of it. I do have to say one of the things I am seeing more of is there's more knowledge now in the C-suite for this type of granularity than there had been maybe 5 or 7 years ago. I am seeing more people understanding what this conversation is, which they have to. I mean, the regulators have rewritten policies so that the buck stops with the board. And if you've got a board of directors and no one has a clue what cybersecurity is, too bad, because when you have a cybersecurity breach and heads are going to roll, that's where heads are going to roll. And I think that was demonstrated. I mean, it's a different space, but with everything we saw with Silicon Valley Bank, right? The board of directors has been fired. They're out. They're gone. Because at the end of the day, those are the folks that are responsible, at least in heavily regulated industries. And for the small business owner, Trey, you and I have talked about this numerous times, right? Nobody wants to spend money. Nobody wants to spend money. And I get it. I understand it. But duct tape will only work for a little while. And then at some point, somebody's got to break out like the hammer and nails and tear up the old wood and put down something proper.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually going to finish up on the small businesses. One way I try to get them to kind of look at it is that your IT can kind of be almost on the same level as a landscaper, because some say you're trying to get this new shiny place or whatnot, but you need to get it manicured up, and it's heavily infested with weeds. You're going to have to get that landscaper to kind of come in and treat it. And I'm not saying that is going to be 100% foolproof. I mean, we just know that's just not going to happen. However, after several treatments over time, you will come to see that what you have invested in has brought you something beautiful without actually really costing you more than what you would have paid if you had waited much longer. Because if that landscaper that came after you purchased the house and your grass is up to, you know, I'll say 3 feet, he's going to look at you and say, I'm charging you 4 times the amount now because we could have prevented this early on had you called me earlier to keep the upkeep. And that's where, again, a good IT uh, infrastructure or community based within your company can do. Because again, everybody has niches, and but it's good to also have outside expertise within that community to ensure that whatever that community did not see, but the outside eye did, they can take it into consideration and find a way to implement that to be one, compliant, two, protected, and three, keep your costs down. That is all I actually have for today. Again, I do appreciate everyone for taking time out of their busy day to actually join me on this call of Tech Talk. This is a very, very refreshing feeling to have. I definitely hope to have more with everyone here. Hopefully, we can bring even more different faces and businesses in on these conversations to ensure that not only the sophistication out there is also getting taught and learned, but they also might take little nuggets here and there back with them to have these conversations that is such as what we have. So again, thank you all for your time. I appreciate you. Love you all. And I hope you have a very happy, good day.
Thanks for hosting.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Great job. Thanks for having me as well.
No problem. No problem. Y'all take care.
All right. Bye.